I was a practicing clinician working in a home health agency model. I wasn't allowed to dose my patients as per best practice guidelines. So I said, there's gotta be a way to do this better.
My grandmother and my grandfather, I started seeing them going in and out of long-term care. It started personal, seeing the sick side of 80, and now it's been exciting to be part of Fox.
Light bulb moment.
Like, that's a complete game changer.
You can see what we can do as a practice and as treating clinicians to really make 80, 85 look so much different than it did back that long ago.
And boil it down into one saying, it's quite simply this. It's be stronger, live better longer.
Welcome to Fox Rehabilitation's Live Better Longer podcast, the podcast dedicated to clinicians who work with older adults. My name is Jim Shear, and on today's episode, I will be joined by author Shelly Calcagno. And this episode of the podcast has been a few months in the works. Let me explain. Shelly got a cold, much like many do between the months of November and April. You know, one of those colds that you just can't shake. I remember, I think it was 7 years ago, my band was set to play our 20th anniversary show, my band from college. And I wanted it to be a spectacular show. So I got in shape, I was playing guitar every day, I was singing every day, and I got one of those dang colds. And I couldn't shake it, and I knew it was coming, because I got the cold probably 3 weeks before the concert, and I went to the doctors, and they gave me medicine, and long story short, nothing worked. I was sick for a month. My voice sounded like I was sick during the concert. So there's some times when you just can't shake a cold. So that's the bad news, that Shelly got sick and we had to postpone this interview. But the good news is Shelly is better now. Her voice is back. She is ready to go. So on today's episode of the Live Better Longer podcast, we will talk about her book, The Longest Goodbye, A Family's Hope-Filled Journey Through Alzheimer's. In her book, Shelly writes about how her mother was her best friend. And then she takes us through the difficult journey of her mother having Alzheimer's disease. It's an emotional journey. Shelly compares it to a slow-ticking clock as you watch time slip away. And despite this probably being the most difficult thing that Shelly has ever gone through, she talks about finding moments of hope within that journey. So once again, the book is called The Longest Goodbye, A Family's Hope-Filled Journey Through Alzheimer's, written by Shelly Calcagno. And you can get that anywhere books are sold. So before I bring on Shelly, I just want to remind everyone that it is the silver anniversary of Fox Rehabilitation this year. 25 years of clinical excellence. And online, we have started a social media campaign called MyFox25. Told you about it last time. I'm going to tell you about it again. Here's what we want everyone to do. It can be clinicians, caregivers, patients, families of clinicians, whoever believes in the Fox mission of rehabilitating lives. We want you to do 25 of something. 25 jumping jacks, push-ups, you can bake 25 brownies, and then we want you to record that. On the video, we want you to donate at least $25 to a charity that's important to you. And since we will be talking about Alzheimer's today, why don't you make a MyFox25 and donate at least $25 to the Alzheimer's Foundation of America, the AFA. So once again, 25 of something. Donate at least $25 to a charity that's important to you, and then post it on your social media accounts using the hashtag MyFox25. Got to use that hashtag so we can find you, and then we can share it on our social media accounts. So get creative, do 25 of something, and let's pump some good karma into the world in 2023. We are back on Fox Rehabilitation's Live Better Longer podcast, and I am now joined by Shelly Calcagno, author of The Longest Goodbye, a family's hope-filled journey through Alzheimer's. Shelly, thank you for coming in.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for having me. It's great to be with you.
I was thinking about you today because when you put out a book, you usually do press. I actually saw an interview that you did. How tough is it to talk about this book because you have to relive that experience over and over and over again?
Yeah, it's different. It's definitely been a challenge because it has been a long journey. And I think also one thing I didn't really fully anticipate was the timing of my book. And actually, my book came out just a month after my mom passed away. Yeah, just navigating through that whole emotional final chapter of her journey while promoting this book has really been something that I've had to process and I'm still processing. It's been in some ways just really great to be able to talk about her and her story and honor her that way, but it's also for sure been emotional as well. So
I could understand, but they say like the best thing to do when you're suffering or when you're ever having problems is to talk about it.
yes, for sure.
So it's kind of neat that this book is a vehicle for you to talk about your relationship with you and your mom.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, to have her story shared in hopes that it will encourage and bring hope to other people. I mean, that's legacy and that, that I can honor her that way is really special to me. So yeah.
Shelly, my first question for you is, when did your mom first show signs of Alzheimer's?
Well, our journey with her was a 10-year journey. So in the beginning, it was really just small things. I write in the first chapter of my book, it's called Yellow Flowers. And I just remember the weekend we were, it was a holiday weekend and my brother was just standing outside talking with my mom and, it was springtime and there was like dandelion weeds all over the garden. And my mom just started to struggle and she was just searching for her words and she couldn't get out what they were called. She couldn't remember. So she called them yellow flowers. And that was really the first indication. My brother just kind of had a thought in his mind that, maybe something's happening. Maybe, something's wrong. And in the beginning, it was a very slow journey with her, like just slow steps of forgetting. But we definitely realized when it was happening. So yeah, for her, it started off quite slow, but it ended up being a 10-year progression and 10-year journey.
So you talked about that story about the yellow flowers. Did your family brush it off at all? Say, oh, like, nah, or did you think, wow, like this could be the beginning of something?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, for us, in my mom's family, her dad had Alzheimer's as well as her two older brothers. So at first, I think we were just overcome with fear that, now it was happening to our mom too, given the family history. So at first, it was really, really hard for us to talk about it. We almost didn't want to accept what was happening. We almost couldn't believe now it's happening to our mom. How are we gonna walk through this journey? So at the beginning, I would say the first couple of years, it was really difficult for us to talk about it and to talk to our dad about it. And yeah, we were just learning how to navigate and to step into that journey together. So yeah, there was definitely at the beginning, it was very challenging for us.
And then at what point did you decide to write a book?
Well, it's interesting. 10 years ago, I had a children's book come out and, I generally write about, parenting and family and, kind of like happy, bright, fun things. So, I never, if you told me I would, be writing a book about Alzheimer's, about losing my mom, that was never, ever on my radar. I would say probably the last 3 or 4 years, I love blogging and writing. So I just started to share some of my journey. I was feeling kind of alone in what I was walking through. And I thought maybe I'm just going to start to share little snippets of my story. So as I started to do that, people just really started to respond. And I thought, maybe there's something here in my journey that I can share with other people. And it just kind of slowly, became this book outline. So I didn't set out, that was never my plan. It just, in my journey of processing, that's where it led me.
No, because I have a friend whose father has early stages of dementia, and all of us have never experienced that before. So we don't even know what to do. We don't even know how to talk about it. So I love that there's a book like this. There's a resource for people like us who have never experienced anything like this before.
Yeah, I found, I mean, I've obviously, now that I'm in the publishing world with this book, I see all the books that are out there and resources. But in my journey, I couldn't find one for myself that I felt had hope in the journey. And I know that sounds strange, like what hope is there in Alzheimer's? But I needed that hope from somewhere. And so that's kind of the perspective that I've tried to write my book from.
Yeah, hope is in the title. Once again, it's called The
Mhm.
Longest Goodbye, A Family's Hope-Filled Journey Through Alzheimer's. So when people hear of Alzheimer's disease, they don't necessarily associate it with hope. You
No.
talk about hope a lot. So
Yeah.
how do you find hope in a situation like this?
I remember at the beginning of the journey, I really went through some dark times. I was just very, very blessed and very fortunate to have an incredible mom. Like I just grew up with an incredible mom. That's part of my story. And so when she got sick and I realized that she was slipping away like this, I realized, I can either just let myself become overcome with darkness and let this part of her journey and our relationship define everything, or I can look back and I can just remember all that she's been to me and for me, and I'm just going to still carry those parts through what we're walking through together. And so it wasn't easy at all, but I just decided to start looking for joy in everyday moments. I started to look for hope, and that wasn't always easy because there were many hopeless days. There were many, moments that I would never want to have to revisit again or live again. But in the middle of all that, I decided, I don't want to lose who my mom has always been to me while this disease is taking her away. So I just started to collect moments, and I kept celebrating the things that she loved. I kept doing the things she loved, up until the very end. And I really feel that I can look back now and, I can look back at the journey of pain and hope just intertwined together. And so that's been really significant for me. That's how I processed this whole journey.
Shelly, do you have an example of one of those moments that brought you hope and joy?
Yeah, I mean, some of them are just like simple moments. I remember when she was pretty high functioning still, and every year my father would take a trip. We're from Canadian, so they would go out to Newfoundland to the East Coast, and every year they did that. And then one year my dad's like, I don't think we're gonna go again. And I just thought, I had a friend at work who just encouraged me, you should go, you should take her. And I was a little bit apprehensive at first because, we're in the journey and I wasn't sure how it was going to be. But, I kind of just thought, what, I'm just going to embrace this. And, we went on that trip, and it was incredible. It's like one of my, most cherished memories that I have with her now, even though she was forgetting, but she still knew where we were. And it was just so special. And so, that was kind of a big moment. But then there's been like little moments along the way, like sitting and listening to her favorite music, or, watching a movie together, even if she doesn't fully understand. It's just, I guess the gift of presence has been really important to me as well. And, even up until like her last, few weeks of life, it was her birthday. So, we still brought her flowers. We still celebrated her. We just tried to, infuse all those moments of joy along the way, even in the middle of our heartache and loss.
Wow. I love that because I feel like it could be so easy to turn it off, but instead you went in the opposite direction. Like you turned it
Mhm.
on, searching for that hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like when I looked at the whole picture, like, of what Alzheimer's could be, and what I knew it would be, it was just so overwhelming. It felt like this giant mountain, and I thought, "I don't know how I'm gonna get through, across, conquer that mountain at all." So for me, instead of, like, looking at the mountain, I just broke that into, like, moments. So it's just been all about moments, and I write about that in my book. I have a list of moments I can look back on, and now that, my mom is not with me anymore, I'm just so grateful that I did that. And it sounds like, I don't want it to make it sound like it was always easy and fun and happy. It wasn't, I think, but I think it's so worth it in those times of pain and heartache, just to search for gifts and to search for joy.
And Shelly, throughout this journey, what did you learn about Alzheimer's?
Oh, wow. I don't think I realized, first of all, how many people are affected by Alzheimer's. I don't think I really realized the ripple effect. We think about and talk about the person who has Alzheimer's, and in most cases, that one person has a whole network of family and people around them that care about them that are all affected too. And so it's such a widespread impact of this disease, and I didn't really realize that. I feel like most people that I talk to these days, and I think, if we look at Alzheimer's stats, they're increasing at a very fast pace. But I think so many people are impacted and touched by this disease more than I ever even realized before. So
Is
it's
it
one thing I definitely learned.
50 million?
Yes, I think the latest World Health Organization stats was 55 million people in 2020, with huge increases forecasted like for the next few decades. So that's a lot of people. And when
Yeah.
you think of the caregivers too, like caregiving, that's something I really didn't understand, the depth and the scope of what it means to be a caregiver. And my father was my mom's primary caregiver, and he was incredible. But that whole journey itself, I wasn't the primary caregiver, and I know what I went through. So just thinking about, my father and those out there caregiving for people with Alzheimer's, like it's a long, long, hard journey. So, and I don't know that we talk about it a lot. I don't know that we know how
Yeah.
to support people. I feel like it's a really lonely journey too. I feel like you kind of get to if you're walking that road with this illness, and all of a sudden you're in this journey, and you're kind of there alone, and people don't know how to support you because we don't really talk about it, because I think we're just immersed in it. We're just trying to get through it. But it's so important, I think, that support network for people.
Who helped you, Shelly?
Oh, well, for a while I went to therapy. I went to see a therapist. I knew that this was early on. I didn't want to find myself in a crisis, in the middle of things. So in the early stages, I went and I went to see a therapist who got some help just managing my own self-care. I think that's really important. And again, like my writing and my community, I have a community of people around me that, helped walk me through that too. But yeah, I think it's just important to have people, and as we progress further, we have an incredible Alzheimer's society in our area. And, when my mom went into long-term care, I don't think that's another thing I didn't know anything about really was long-term care and what that involves. Like there's incredible people out there who are really, supporting Alzheimer's patients and their families. So
Now, has anyone reached out to you directly? Now that you have this resource out there, has anyone reached out to you and say, hey, like I'm going through this experience for the first time, please help me?
yes, it's been encouraging. Been starting to get emails and messages on social media from people. And I think, my message that I'm trying to get across and hope that gets across is just that message of looking for joy and hope and gifts. So people have commented on that. And I think I think in life, what I've learned is that, we have a lot of moments that are joy filled and happy and wonderful. And then we have these moments of pain and sadness that we have to walk through. So in my book, I talk about just, how do we walk through the middle of that? How do we, stay on that wire? I call it a shaky wire. So people have reached out and have just said, that analogy resonates with them, and just kind of learning how to walk through that in life is significant. So I hope it helps and brings encouragement to people.
Something you wrote struck me. You said there is no scale to loss.
Mhm.
Pain is pain. And I think that's very important because you said that your mother had Alzheimer's disease for 10 years.
Mhm.
For some people's parents, it's shorter. But I like how you said, listen, pain is pain, whether it's 1 year or 10 years. Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, I've often thought, I have friends who, they've been faced with a sudden loss. They woke up one day and something tragic happened in their life, and they lost, a loved one without any warning, without any chance to say goodbye. And then there's people who are walking on this long journey, and there's so many different paths that we're on, and I don't know that we can measure, or, one is better, one's harder. I don't think you can measure loss. I think we have to learn how to walk through it the best that we can. I think we need to, try to bring people around us to help us through that journey and lean on whatever things that we can. And like I said before, I didn't want to get engulfed in the grief and the despair. So in any situation, whatever loss we're going through, we just, however we can kind of look for hope and joy, I think is an important focus.
And you're a woman of faith. So
Yes.
Are there any particular Bible passages or Bible stories that helped you along the way?
Yeah, I love kind of getting back to what I was just talking about. I love Ecclesiastes, where it talks about how there's a time and a season for everything under the sun. And it just talks about it really, puts into perspective like the exciting, amazing times of our life that we walk through that are filled with joy and happiness and celebration. And then, like I've already said, the harder moments of life. And I just wrap myself around the fact that there is a time and a season for everything under the sun. And how do I balance that out in my life? And so I just, so my faith is definitely an anchor for me that holds me through that, that wire that I talk about
Yeah.
walking on. I just, my faith centers me on that for sure. And I do recognize, everything's not going to always be great and amazing. How do I stay on the path through all those times?
And while writing this book, and even after writing this book, are there any other resources that you came across dealing with Alzheimer's disease?
I really got into the TV show This Is Us.
Yeah.
I found that was very therapeutic for me, watching that journey on television. Yeah, that show for a lot of reasons resonated with me, but I realized, the last season where they were going with, with their mom with Alzheimer's, and it was almost the exact same journey and timing I was on. Yeah, it seemed silly to find hope in a television show like that, but
It's not silly, Shelly. It's not silly.
But I loved it. It just helped. It helped me. It helped me like most weeks I would tell my family, I don't think I can watch next week, because I'd be like sobbing after. But it just, I think anything that can help us not feel like we're alone is really significant. So wherever we have to look for that, I think is good. Jan Arden wrote a really good book called Feeding My Mother. It was during the early stages of her mom's memory loss, and she found comfort in cooking her mom meals and food and feeding her. And I thought that was really interesting too. So yeah, I
love that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, even though our parents pass away, there's things that they leave behind. There's memories,
Absolutely.
There's recipes, there's pictures, there's advice, there's wisdom.
Absolutely. And those things are so important. And, especially that's even more real to me now that my mom has passed away. Those things that she left behind, some of them are tangible things I can hold in my hand, but, many of those things are just, things in my heart, things that she did. We just went through Christmas. It was a hard season knowing that she wasn't here, but there are just so many things that, imprinted in my life from her that I know that I can carry on, right? So those are the things that I think bring us comfort too in this journey. What's
really great is now you have a resource for the whole world to have.
That's my hope. I've said I'm not a, a professional therapist. I'm not a grief counselor. I'm none of those things, but, I'm a daughter who just really loved her mom and who just really, walked through this journey trying to put my whole heart into everything I did. And if my journey can help some other people along the way, then that would just be the greatest way I could think to honor my mom and her memory.
So the book is called The Longest Goodbye, A Family's Hope-Filled Journey Through Alzheimer's, available wherever you purchase books. And Shelly, I'm glad we made this podcast happen.
Yes,
because you got a cold, and that knocked you out for a few weeks.
Thank you for working with me and having me.
Because you don't want to be doing this scratchy throat coughing thing throughout a podcast.
No, that would be terrible. So thanks for working with me.
Yes, but before you go, I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
Are you a television personality in Canada?
Well,
because on YouTube, there's clips.
No, so there was a certain season of my life where I did some segments and producing on a show called 100 Huntley Street in Canada. So I did lots of like just family segments. Some of them were like fun. It was actually a really fun time in my life. I got to do like creative things. I would do like, crafts or ideas for like special events and that kind of thing. So, and talk about family and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, so if
But,
anyone's interested, you can find these clips on YouTube. And I have
oh
a
dear.
question. I have a question about one of your segments. I think you were talking
Okay.
about books, and there was a biography or a history on Pixar, and you mentioned that you're a big Pixar fan.
Yes.
So I'm
I love that book.
curious, do you have a favorite Pixar movie?
Okay, well,
Or
it
one
has
of your
to
favorites?
It has to be the whole, like, Toy Story series. Those are my favorite because my kids watched them so many times, like, I feel like it's ingrained into our family culture. I remember, like, when Andy went away to college, it was just, like, my son going away to college. Like, so I've just, like, cried my eyes out through those movies, so it's gotta be the Toy Story. I don't know if
do you include
trilogy.
4? Do you include 4 in that?
No, I didn't like 4 as much. I would say 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, Shelly, yeah. So
Yeah.
Toy Story 3, I forget what year it came out. I think it was like 2010, 2011. I said it was the best film of the year. And for me, it was the best ending to a trilogy ever.
Mhm.
Ever.
So
I was
good.
sobbing for 3/4 of the movie.
Yeah, I can relate. I can relate. One year, the first Toy Story, one year, my family drove to Newfoundland for a vacation, so that's like a 2.5-day drive. Like, he just watched the whole thing on loop, so that's like a core memory, core family memory that, just seared into my brain.
I'm with you. I'm with you. 1
Yep.
through 3. Well,
Yay!
Shelly, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
It was great to be with you. Thanks.
For Shelly Calcagno, my name is Jim Shear, and we will see Yins later.